Hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is László Marcel, and this channel deals with home automation, home networking, and sometimes with related stuff like DIY electronics and even 3D printing. Now on to the topic of this video. So if you know me even a little, you know that I'm a fan of building home servers and Docker hosts as well. But for a long time I tried to avoid using Raspberry Pi as a Docker host. Because, yeah, I thought it's just too weak for that. But times are changing, and so do opinions. So here we go. We are building a Raspberry Pi Docker host. And also to make it more interesting, it will be a 64-bit, a true 64-bit Raspberry Pi based Docker host. The story is pretty much the usual. We start with the operating system. For a 64-bit Docker host, you will obviously need a 64-bit operating system. And guess what? On a Raspberry Pi, you can't use Raspbian because it's just, 32 bits. So we will need Ubuntu. And we will go for a cutting edge, so Raspberry Pi 4, and we will try the new Ubuntu 20. So the story is the usual, as I said, download the ISO file, then you will have to burn it onto an SD card. For that I will use Etcher. So let's do the download first. As soon as your SD card is ready, you can just unplug it from your PC and insert it into your Raspberry Pi, then we can begin with the installation. But the installation process is slightly different from what you have used to in case of Raspbian. So you will need wired Ethernet connection for the first few steps. Then we will enable Wi-Fi on the Raspberry Pi, and from that it will be a truly headless installation. I mean, cableless or something like that. Problem is, your Raspberry Pi running with Ubuntu now is by default configured for DHCP, meaning that it will get some random IP address from your router. So you cannot SSH to it while, well, the IP address is unknown. So this step depends on your router, but the general idea is that you go to your router's interface, check for DHCP clients, and at some point you will see your Raspberry Pi somewhere. So let's look it up. In my case, it is this one. Hostname is Ubuntu, which is the default. You can change it later to anything you want. And now we have the IP address here. So I will just take this and then use it to connect to my newly installed Raspberry Pi. When you log in for the first time, username is Ubuntu and the password is also Ubuntu. Here we go. At this point you have to change your password. Then you have to log in with your new password. Cool. So let's install a few packages that I usually install that can be useful. So we have fancy tools to look around on the machine and whatnot. So let's proceed with installing Docker. Okay, I promise you, we will install Wi-Fi first. To enable Wi-Fi, we have to make a slight configuration change. First, we need to find out the name of our wireless interface. To do that, you have to issue the following command. And as you can see, wireless interface has the name WLAN0. Next, we need to configure NetPlan. NetPlan is a utility used since Ubuntu 18.40 LTS, as far as I remember. And it makes configuring the Wi-Fi quite easy. So we just need to adjust this configuration file. So first, let's find the name of the configuration file. It should be under etc netplan. And here we go. Now we need to edit that file. And we need to add a section. So I already prepared this. It's a weird looking section, but it has the information we need, namely the wireless SSID and the password. So change it, and then we will apply our changes to NetPlan. Now let's see whether it worked or not. And as you can see, we are now connected to the Wi-Fi. So at this point you can disconnect the wired Ethernet connection. Now let's talk about the actual Docker installation. So I usually don't suggest this method because the Docker version packed with the operating system's package manager is usually way behind the actual development releases. But in this case, since this version of Ubuntu is fairly new, we can give it a try, right? We will use the operating system's package manager, which is apt or apt, and it will make our job significantly easier than usual. So just type with the command sudo apt install dockerio. So that's it, we are done with the installation. Let's check out the version number. So Docker 19.03.8, and guess what? At the time of making this video, this is the most recent released version. So we are in luck. We can go with this version. To finalize the Docker installation, there are two steps left. One is mandatory and the other one, well, optional, and it totally depends on you. So first we need to enable the service behind Docker. So to do that, you need sudo system control enable now Docker. This will make Docker start with the Raspberry Pi. So whenever your Pi is running, Docker daemon will be running, and it is ready to run containers as well. Now the second one is an administrative step. I mean, it provides administrative privileges for your user. So you can use Docker commands without typing sudo each time. To do that, you need to add your current user to a group called Docker. It's a single one-liner command. So sudo usermod/ag Docker and your username, which if you're still using the default user like I do, then it's Ubuntu. So there we go. Now we can do stuff like docker pull hello world. And no, you will have to relog with this user first, sorry. Otherwise, you get this. Or without adding that user to the Docker group, you also get this. So either that or sudo each time you issue a Docker command. Now about installing Docker Compose. In case of this configuration, I mean Raspberry Pi plus a 64-bit operating system, it will be a bit trickier than usual. So let's try that command that comes with the official documentation. And there we go. You can see that it downloaded 19 bytes, which is a text file containing not found. And it's because out of these parameters, one of them is the architecture, one of them is the operating system name. And while Linux as an operating system name is okay, the architecture is not so much, because just let me show you. So this is the architecture, and this is not supported by this by default by Docker Compose. I mean, no package available at this address. It means that we have to do a workaround, and luckily for us, we can use Python's packaging installer called pip to install it. But in order to pip to work, we have to install some other packages first. So let's do that. Yeah, here's the command. It will install a couple of packages. Here we go. And then we can use pip to install Docker Compose. So another command. This time I decided to spare you from the typing sound, so I just prepared these commands. Okay, luckily for me, most of the required libraries and stuff were already installed. So now we have Docker Compose. There we go. To test what we have just installed, I've created a single Docker Compose file, which contains two tools that I always use with a Docker host. One of them is Portainer and the other one is NetData. So just let me show you the file. Here we go, it's a simple setup. So we just use Docker Compose to start this. And so, a few minutes later after the installation, here we have a fully running Docker host, complete with system diagnostics utilizing NetData and also with Portainer. So this is Portainer's first time setup. We will just provide a password, like whatever. And then here we go. We have Portainer running on our Raspberry Pi Docker host. Now the question is what you can use such a Docker host for. And while the Raspberry Pi itself is not really that powerful of a server, There are a lot of stuff that are small containers like Home Assistant, like Mosquito, like Octoprint and whatnot that you can still run in container on a Raspberry Pi 4. So what do you think? Any ideas for this shiny new Docker host? Personally, I do have a lot of ideas. So if you're interested in similar videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And yeah, I think it's time to conclude this video. Thanks for watching it and hope to see you next time. Until then, take care, stay safe out there. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, hit like. If you want to help my channel and see more of my content, hit subscribe. If you want to check out behind the scenes and want to know more about me, then follow me on social media. You can find the links here. Thank you again and see you next time.